Welcome back to Pop Culture Warrior. I am your host, as always, CQ. Our guest tonight is a talented actress who has made her mark both on screen and on stage. She's best known for her standout role as Justine on the hit show Superstore or Sally on Hot in Cleveland. She has showcased her ability to blend sharp wit with heartfelt emotion, creating memorable and beloved characters. In addition to her television work, Kelly has appeared in a range of popular shows, including Bones and The Mentalist and many others, proving her versatility as a performer. Beyond her television roles, she's also garnered recognition for her work in theater, and her performances have earned her acclaim from critics and fans alike. Whether she's making us laugh or pulling at our heartstrings, she brings unique energy and authenticity to every role she plays with. And now she's here to bring some joy and some laughter to us all. Please, everyone, give a big welcome to the show, Miss Kelly Schumann, everybody.
Oh, that
Yay!
was such a nice intro. That
There's
was awesome.
raucous applause. Oh my God, it's deafening. It's
It's
deafening, all
too
the people.
much. Too much.
Oh man, thank you so much for being here tonight. We really appreciate it.
Oh, thank you for having me. I'm
Oh
happy to
my
be here.
God. Oh my God. Of course. Of course. How could we not? Man, there's so much I want to talk about. We were just gossiping, behind the scenes as I'm one to do. But let's start off. I like to get to know a bit of the person behind the characters, a bit of the real person, the Kelly. I don't want to know about Justine just yet. I want to know about Kelly. So
Okay.
start us off. This is a pop culture show. We're mostly
Yeah.
military veterans. What is, if any, your military connection?
It's funny that you start with that question because I called my mom on the way home from work today and I said, I just want to make sure I got it right. Uh, so I actually have, at first I was like, I don't have that many family members. And then I started thinking about it. I'm like, actually, I have a lot of family members. I have mostly Army.
Okay.
I have a very close dear cousin who was in Iraq, and the whole time he was there, we were sending him, goodie packages, all kinds of stuff. And then I have another cousin that was Air Force. So then my grandfather was in World War II Army. I have my mom's cousin was World War II Army. So we have a lot of Army folks. And then I have a really dear friend from high school who, like, immediately out of high school, he knew he wanted to go into the Air Force. He wanted to fly planes, and he did. And he retired after flying Air Force Two for a few years.
Wow.
I know. So he's pretty cool. Him and his wife are both Air Force, and they are just amazing, lovely humans, and pretty impressive humans, if I may say.
That's incredible. That's
Isn't that cool?
what a great connection. I mean,
Yeah.
and again, I always tell people the reason we ask this. I mean, it's not a gotcha or anything like that. It's just this idea. I know a lot of military veterans, myself included. Sometimes post service or even during the service, you feel disconnected from the civilian
Hmm.
population in a way. And
Yeah.
so when we get to see people like you who are like, oh, I've seen this woman on TV, like I know her character, she's made me laugh. And oh, she has a cousin, she has a family member or a best friend or whoever that serves. It just kind of, for me, it feels like it kind of connects, things that we love, like shows like Superstore and things, and saying like, oh, there's that connection there. That's awesome. So
Yeah,
thank
I
you for
can't even
sharing that.
imagine. Uh, I appreciate the service of all veterans, and everybody actively serving. I cannot imagine, but if this brings even just the tiniest bit of entertainment, that makes me happy.
That's awesome. I
Yeah.
appreciate it so much. Again, being that we're a pop culture show, I gotta ask, like, what is it that you geek out about, right? What is it?
Oh my
Books,
God.
movies,
What don't I?
comedy? Like, what is it that you geek out about?
Yeah, it's TV. I love TV. I think I love TV the way some people are about like film and cinema, and they take it seriously and they
Right.
they want to talk about it for hours on end. I can do that with television. And I can do it with, what people consider to be like quote unquote good TV, and I can do it with not good TV. I
Sure.
can do it across the genre. I love television. It's my favorite medium. I love it.
I love it. There is a place, I know people call it like trash TV and these things,
Hmm.
where it's like, there's a place for it, man. If it makes you
Absolutely.
feel a way and it gets you through the day or whatever, like there's a place for it. So uh,
Absolutely.
I'm all about it. My upset 90 Day Fiance. You ever watch 90 Day Fiance? Oh God.
Oh my gosh.
Oh
Okay,
my God.
so I did not watch it until I went home to my parents' house to visit one time. And my 70-plus-year-old parents were like, we got to watch 90 Day Fiance. And I was like, I'm sorry, what? So they're like super into it. So I have seen some now.
My kind of people. We would get along. We would get along.
Yes.
Okay, what else? So I'm curious. Take us back a bit. Uh, Kelly before L.A., right? Kelly before I
Yeah.
read some. You were Oak Parks, Illinois, right? Is that you're coming from?
That's, yeah. So I was born in Wisconsin, but I moved to Illinois when I was very young and lived there most of my life. And honestly, I always wanted to be an actor, but I have to be honest, living in the middle of the country where at the time, things have definitely changed, but at the time there was just very little like professional
Mhm.
acting opportunities. There's a couple of like professional theaters that are equity, which is the union, and then there's a lot of professional non-equity theater in Chicago. And so I was surrounded by it, but actually being an actor who made their living as an actor seemed impossible. It felt like, I mean, I felt like I would have had as good a chance at that as being like a brain surgeon. Like
Right,
it just seemed impossible.
right.
And so I spent a lot of time, like all of my 20s, just trying to find something else that would like work for me. And then, like right before my 30th birthday, a friend had moved out to LA and he said, I have a play I want you to do here in LA. And Los Angeles has amazing theater, but it is not known as a theater town.
Mhm.
And I thought that is so ridiculous. Why would I go? But I did it because it felt compelling. I felt compelled to do it. And then I moved immediately back to Chicago and I said, that's it. Thank you, Los Angeles. Goodbye. That's not the town for me. And then a year later, he said, I have another play for you to do. And I thought, well, I'm not going to keep going back and forth. That's silly. So that's how I ended up in Los Angeles. And I remember my dad saying, so like, are you all in? You're going to try this? And I was like, yeah, I guess I'm all in.
Mhm.
And even then it didn't seem possible. Even then it was like, that's ridiculous. Um, and I thought, I'll give it 3 years. And if nothing happens in 3 years, I'm out of here. And nothing happened in 3 years. Not a thing.
Like maybe 3 more years. Maybe three more.
And every year I was like, okay, one more year. Okay,
One more.
one more year. Yeah. I got to like 7 years and I was like, I guess I'm doing this. I guess I'm staying here.
Okay.
Um, yeah, every job, every little tiny job that I got was like, I just felt starved for that feeling. And so it was just enough to keep me going.
Mm. Is it? I could imagine. I'm not a drug user. Kids, stay away from drugs. But I imagine it's like,
Yeah,
oh, getting that next fix, that next hit, and you're like, oh, it
it is.
grows the addiction of like I want
Yes,
to do it more and more.
I'm chasing the dragon.
Yeah.
Yes, I am after it big time. Yeah, and I
Yes.
can't, every time I think about, I was just talking about this with a friend over the weekend. Every time I think about quitting, I'm like, what am I going to do? I mean, no. Because I'm completely addicted to the way it makes me, look, I wish I'd gotten the accountant calling, but I didn't.
Mm.
I got this one and it's the thing that I'm good at. It's the thing I love doing. It feels the most natural, so I'm stuck with it.
Yeah. We talk about this all the time too, about how um, crossing your passion, but also getting paid well enough to do it. It's a
Yeah,
very difficult thing to do. And
very.
so, for the one percenters, that you nail it, and for the rest of us, it's just like, man, we gotta keep it going and find a
Yep.
way. Um, there was a great scene of yours. I was looking through some of your highlights and some of your
Oh,
things,
yes.
and I think it was Bones, where you were in like a boot camp setting,
I was. Yeah.
which was very, I felt that.
You
I
felt
felt
that.
it when you were in there. I was like, oh my god! And you're doing this like low crawl under the
Yeah,
barbed wire in thick mud,
that's right.
and as much as I appreciated it in the context of the show, my thought goes, that must have been a day of filming right there. There's got to be some
Oh.
stories from that day.
Well, let me tell you, it was real mud. There was no like, I honestly, I went into it so naive, just a little baby child who thought, oh, this is not going to be that big of a deal. They're going to like use something fake and I have to act like it's hard.
Yeah,
No.
CGI, right? It was gonna be CGI
Yeah,
mud.
exactly. Yeah. Bones and the CGI they use. Like, you guys, a lot of that is real. And this was real mud. And I crawled through that mud. I'm going to be conservative here and tell you that I did it 30 times, but I did it way more than that, because what you don't realize is when they're shooting something like this, you shoot a wide shot, then a medium shot, then my coverage, then the girl next to me's coverage, then the man's coverage, and each time you're doing like say 3 to 5 takes.
Mm.
So it was the longest day. Something funny that kept happening is that mud weighs a ton and the pants kept falling off of me. So I would like crawl, and it's like if you've ever crawled in that thick of mud, there's like a vacuum effect that happens.
Mm-hmm.
And so my pants would stay behind and the rest of me would keep moving. But honestly, after like 5 minutes in the mud, there was no vanity. I was like, I don't even care, keep the pants. Like it was horrible. I lost shoes. I mean, there's still probably things in that mud pit somewhere. Like, ugh,
So
that was a
sorry,
rough day.
I can imagine. So I'm very curious about the technical aspects of this, right? So forgive me, but
Yes.
when you're shooting something like this
Hmm.
repeatedly,
Hmm.
you can't get like. Do you have to change clothes every time? You have to give you the same
No,
outfit.
so I think we did have, well, they definitely had multiples of everything we wore. And I think the actual getting into the mud, they shot a couple times and you'd change in between. But no, once we were in, they would just, you'd crawl a little bit and then they'd say like reset and you'd just crawl yourself back and then you go forward again and then you go back. And so we just kind of stayed in the mud.
Oh
Um,
God.
but then I remember lunchtime happened and I'm caked in this like super heavy mud. um and again, vanity is out the window at that point. I'm like, take these pants off. I'm like throwing the pants off, standing there. I didn't even care.
Sure.
And I'm sorry to do TMI, but I was so caked in mud that I drove home, like I had literally a t-shirt and a pair of pants and nothing else on, because all my underclothes were,
Sure.
I had in the mud, and I
Mhm.
did not think this through. And so I had nothing. Luckily, the costume people gave me a pair of socks to wear home. Yeah.
I love it. Like, you have anything for me to change into? Yeah, here's some socks.
They were like, I said, can I keep this extra pair of socks that was in the trailer? They were
Oh,
like,
no.
okay. Yeah. So it
Y-
was a
Your
lot.
your car must have been ruined. I mean,
Um,
mud
it was,
everywhere.
yeah, I was covered. Luckily, by the time we were done, there's a second half of it where I have to climb a wall.
Right. Yeah.
Um, and I did have a stunt person just in case I couldn't actually climb it because I was a little nervous.
Sure.
Um, but I was so proud of myself. Let me tell you, by the end of that day, I don't know what you guys must feel like when you accomplish like a physical task. Like, you guys, that's part of the job, right? For me,
Hmm.
that's rarely part of the job. But I get up to the top of that wall and I was like, I fucking did it. Like,
That's
I
right.
was so proud of myself. So by that point, a lot of the mud had dried. So I was more like dusty, dirty than
Mm,
muddy.
right.
Um, yeah. And I drove home in like 5 p.m. traffic from like, this is for people who are specifically in LA, from like Pacific Palisades back to like East Hollywood. It was like 2 hour drive. And I'm like, oh my God, just get me home.
I can't imagine someone's like sitting at you next to traffic. They just look over and you're just head to toe
Covered.
caked.
I looked insane, I'm sure. It's not the craziest I've looked. Like, I shot something last week where my teeth were blacked out, and that was how I was going home. So it's not the craziest I've ever looked, but It definitely was not normal.
We're gonna have to have a side conversation about the craziest things.
But
Uh,
yeah,
but no,
yeah.
I was gonna say, just to finish that segment, that when you climb the wall, I mean, I've got a decent eye. I can tell, like, oh, extra, stunt guy, whatever. Watch enough stuff. But I
Yeah.
was like, oh, that's definitely her. And
Yeah.
then, like, this, you're right. You had this, like, guttural, like,
Ah!
and I was like, man, like, either she's a really good actress or she's just really pumped that she got up there.
I was pumped because I didn't think I could do it.
That's
And they
awesome.
have this stunt woman standing by who oddly has been my stunt woman also. She was my stunt woman on Superstore, strangely. So I guess she's now my stunt woman. I don't
Yeah.
know. And she's a lovely person, and she was giving me pointers, like, just helping me with tactics. She would be like,
Right.
it's not what it looks like. Put your foot here, put your hand here, and helping me get through it. And then, of course, falling off the back was to like a pile of mats that was
Right.
there. And that
Listen,
was
that
by
had to be
far the best
fun,
part of the
though.
day. Yeah, that was
Yeah,
that was
that'd
so
be.
fun. Yeah,
You get to play. You get to play for a living. That's awesome.
exactly. Yeah.
But no, I just wanted to tell you, from someone who's done it, that I can only imagine.
Ugh.
I did it on a couple of days, and it sucked, and it's great, and it's all these days terrible. But I'm like, but again, knowing the magic of this stuff, I
Uh-huh.
knew you had to have been in that just all day.
All day.
So
Yep,
yes,
hours. Yeah.
I
Thank you.
appreciate
Thank you
you.
for
I
recognizing my
appreciate it.
sacrifice for this job.
Yes, yes, you made it look so real. I was having flashbacks while I'm watching you.
Oh, I'm so sorry, but it was real.
So okay, what else? I mean, I mean, you've been in a bunch of stuff, right? And television and film and theater. I'm curious from your perspective, because this is something that always kind of rattles around my head, is in your experience, how do the experiences of doing TV, of doing film, how do they kind of differ? And then also kind of how do they complement each other for you?
Yeah. It's so this is such a good question. And for, like most of my career before I got to Los Angeles was theater.
Mhm.
So the great thing about theater is you can use your body, you have a full range of motion. I can move if I feel compelled to move. Um, and it's a bigger sort of thing because you're on a stage, you've got people at the back of the auditorium you're trying to reach. When my very first day on Hot in Cleveland, this was not my first TV show, but it was my first time walking and talking at the same time. And
Which
turns
sounds
out I'm not
funny, but I get where
I'm
you're.
not great at it. Yeah.
It sounds
Honestly,
like such a random thing. Walking and talking,
no.
it's hard.
It took some practice because they literally do put a piece of tiny tape on the
Mhm.
floor and they're like, don't go past this mark. I cannot see that mark. And when I am acting, how can I be held
Yeah.
responsible for
I'm in
that
the
as well?
moment. I'm in the
I
moment.
Yes, I'm feeling things. And they're like, I don't care what you're feeling, hit your mark. And literally the director was like, hit your mark and say your line. And I was like, I think I'm gonna get fired. Like I was so scared. Every day I kept going and going like, okay, I just can't screw it up today. And um that's the big difference is that you've got, a much more limited field that you can work with. Um and you have to literally hit a mark. So you're not nearly as free. And then it depends on what you're shooting. In some instances, they want you to like try different things. In other instances, they need the same take over and over and over again. So those are just different skills that I've had to like hone over the years because yeah, on stage, I mean you pretty much know what you're doing. You've rehearsed it and it might change a little bit from night to night, but like you don't want to pull any punches. You don't want to scare anybody.
Right.
Everyone needs to be safe. Um,
No
and
improv in
so
theater.
exactly, you're not just like saying whatever comes into your head.
Right.
But then on TV, sometimes they're cool with that,
Right.
So it kind of depends. And I would say reading the room is a big part of that, like knowing are we like running way over time and time is money and I'm wasting money by like screwing around and improvising? Or are we at a place where, like, the line that's on the page is funny, but there might be something funnier.
Yeah.
So go ahead and improvise and let's see what
And
you've got.
we got the one take. We got it
That's
good.
right.
Now we can play.
Now you can do what you want.
And I've heard, again, as a viewer, I've heard, people talk about how with theater, it's about projecting, right? It's about you want to be loud, and then, but because you got the boom mic right there, you can be very quiet and very still and very
Yeah.
nuanced in the performances.
Well,
So-
as you noticed when I first logged on, I'm still very loud. So
No.
he's being too polite to tell you that he had to turn me down. Which, by the way, I am used to that. I'm used to people being like, "Oh, she's loud." Okay. But yeah, it's because that's my training. That's where I come from. So yeah, I try not to worry too much about it, because I think that could just like hinder a performance if I'm so busy worrying about the logistics of it. But you do have to worry about it. That's part of it.
For sure.
Yeah.
Excuse me.
Mm.
Getting over a cold. So
Oh.
you've played Justine on Superstore, like we mentioned, Sally and Hot in Cleveland. I'm curious when you're getting the sides or however the
Mhm.
audition process was, and you're trying to feel this out. Like, what are you looking at, right? What are the keys that you're taking that you're going, okay, I'm going to use this, and this is going to be my take on this character.
Yeah. So that's also a great question, because I think what people maybe don't know is that, like in the case of Justine, that was a one line role. So the side was a portion of a scene. I didn't even get to see the whole scene. I got one page and it was like start here, end here, just a very small portion. And it was one line in an episode. The first episode I'm in on Superstore is called the Olympics episode. And it's technically episode 0 of season 2. And so it's before episode 1. Actually, it technically in the timeline takes place somewhere during season 1. But yeah, so I had very little to work with, and I kind of just went in and was like kind of myself. I think sometimes when you have so little like that, the best thing you can bring to the table is yourself, because literally there's nobody like me. There's nobody like you in the world. So that's the best I have to offer. And in that case, they went for it. So and then it did say on the original audition that it was possibly a recurring role. But even after the first day, I thought, I don't think I was able to do enough to show what I'm capable of. I didn't feel like I had enough opportunity. So I kind of wrote it off. I thought that might be it for that one. And I just got lucky. If anyone is considering this career, you really have to take into account how much of it is luck.
And
I show up a lot of, and you know what? I was just telling somebody this today. It's not so much rejection because they never say no. They just never call you back.
Gotcha.
So it's like being ignored.
It's ghosting. You're getting
It's
ghosted a lot.
It's getting ghosted
Gotcha.
regularly.
Okay.
Yeah.
There's got to be a word, like rejection without the actual rejection. There's got other than ghosting.
It's like you just pour this like heart and soul into this like piece of art, and you throw it out into the world, and nothing happens.
Into the void, and there's not even an echo. Nothing comes back.
Not a thing.
And kudos to you for taking something that was, like you said, a line on a side, and then I think you ended up with like 72 episodes under your belt for Superstore. That's incredible. That's an incredible accomplishment. And honestly, when I really did, I was a fan of the show while I was one of the people watching while it was on TV. And I think the pandemic played such a role in just the turmoil, and like I feel like it's not fair, because I really do feel like the show didn't get its fair shake. And I think the pandemic had a lot to do with that, and just kind of throwing everything, there was other things happening apparently other than TV at the time. I don't know, other things. But I do think it was such a creative force. It was, I like to say like this generation's like The Office or Friends, in that, it's this, I don't know, it's this ensemble cast where everybody had such a meaty chunk to play with. Like everybody, like it's
Mhm.
such well developed characters, right? You know who the crazy
Yeah.
ones were, the wild ones, the straight man, you know, the solid guy, and all these things. Your character, Justine, was something else. Just she's
Entirely.
such a wild card because you never
Yeah.
knew what was going to come out of her mouth. You never knew if it was going to come off as this very normal sentence or just something where you have to like wait what.
Yeah.
And I'm curious. Early on, she seemed much more of that kind of like just the wild card, right? That just that wild card that was going to
Hmm.
say this weird thing, and everybody's like, "What?" And then as the
Hmm.
seasons progressed, she became more and more of a fully fledged character.
Yeah.
How much of that were you able to participate in? How much of that was just the writing? Loved what you did. Like, I'm curious how that character evolved and what your role in that was.
I am so glad you asked because I think this is one of the coolest stories. So, uh, the early on, are episodes where I kind of just show up in the break room. And again, like you said, I just say something crazy and everyone kind of goes like, "What? Okay, moving on." And in break room scenes particularly, they are so fun because all the actors are on set at the same time, and so there's a lot of improvising that happens. And usually when we had a break room scene, it took an entire day to shoot the scene just because there's so many angles and they have to turn the whole thing around, um and so many people that need coverage. And so there was a lot of improvising, so much of Justine exists because of things that were improvised. Like, there's a part about Justine inviting people to her own intervention, and Lauren Ash was just like, "Justine, stop it. No one thinks you're a drunk." And like that's how Justine being a fake drunk started. Same with her, just like in general being like, "Oh my god, I'm so wild and crazy," and everyone's like, "No, you're not." That's kind of where it started. So it all started in these like improvisational moments. And then, this is a great time to call out that like we had such phenomenal writers on this show. They like picked it up and ran with it. And I don't identify as a writer. I don't identify as an improviser. I identify as an actor. So when I'm given a line that is painfully hilarious, what I know how to do is deliver it. But those people who write those lines, they are geniuses. I always think about like reverse cowgirl, which is something that people like yell at me all the time if they recognize me or are
It's from the
commenting
show.
on
It's
something
from the
online.
show. Let's
It's
just make that
from the
clear.
show.
It's from
Yeah.
the show.
Yeah. Yeah. Yes. Yes. And like, or like just any random line that I say,
Yeah.
people will just say it. They're like, "Oh my God, this is my favorite line." And I think those writers, they were just writing these little gems
Mm.
for me to say. I got so lucky. I got so lucky.
And
So
no, please
yeah,
finish. I'm not trying to
50-50.
interrupt you.
No, I mean, it's just like 50-50, right? Like the actors are doing their part, the writers are doing their part. Let's call the writers more like 85%. But like, and then I just show up, I get this like brilliant random line to just say in the middle of a scene. And I think it's going to be good. It's going to go down as one of the best jobs I'll ever have
Oh
because
wow.
it was so great, so
And
funny.
I agree wholeheartedly. Writers they should get more credit than what they get, and but I also think you could have the best line in the world, and if you don't have the actor that
Yeah.
can say it and can bring life into the words, right? Because it's if I say it like, "Oh, I like reverse cowgirl" because I don't have to look him in the eyes, it's like, it's weird. But when you said it and it's just like, whoa, it's so wild. Um,
It's so wild.
the,
Yeah.
and there were some scenes like I can remember, like you were trying to park a car and you're just having the damnedest of a time. At one point, you're eating a cupcake and telling people to go around. Like
Yep.
when you get to film stuff like that, and I'm curious, especially
Mhm.
working with a car and things like that, is like
Mhm.
that's all you, right? This is not a
That's
stunt
me.
car. There's
Mm-mm.
no remote
No.
control. How difficult was something like that?
Oh, I'm proud to say that I'm good at like three things. I'm good at acting, I'm good at typing, and I'm good at parallel parking. And they parked the two cars purposely like very close together so that I would have a hard time. I dropped that baby in the first time, like no problem. They kept moving the cars closer and closer. So finally it got to a point where I could no longer, like literally the car does not fit. Um and uh I, I honestly, that was one of the hardest scenes for me to shoot. I'm a very good driver, so I'm trying to. Also, it's hard to get out of the mindset of like you can do whatever you want with this car. You can hit the car behind you. You can hit the curb. You can go up on the curb. You can do whatever you want. And I'm like going, just tapping off the
Nice.
brake just a little bit, like easing off the brake.
Right.
And meanwhile, they're like, gun it. Like you can do whatever you want. So honestly, it was a little bit hard, but I knew even when we were shooting it that it was going to be so funny. Victor Nelly, who is one of our most consistent directors on Superstore, he directed that episode, and he just was like, he was letting me kind of just go crazy and do whatever I wanted, and then he would just yell from the camera, "Do it again and say this. Do it again and say this." And it was a night shoot, so it was like middle of the night. It was just, that one was a blast. I knew when we were shooting it that it was going to be so funny,
Mm.
and it turned out great.
And again, I'm upset. I'm upset for you because I'm like, man, I feel like the show should have lasted longer and it
Mhm.
should have been more to it. More people should have watched. Whatever, it is what it is.
Yeah.
That's it. That's the business, right?
Yeah.
The When you're getting more and more involved, I assume, and this is just me from an outside perspective. I watch certain shows and I go, they look like they're having fun. There's certain shows you watch where you're like, even if the loving couple in the show, and you're like, those people, you could tell they don't like each other. They just don't like. But you guys really look like you were having
Yeah.
so much fun on that show.
Oh, it was so funny. I mean, like Lauren Ash and Mark McGinney. Mark McGinney is a comedic legend. And there were times where like maybe it would be like a long night, or we weren't getting a scene that we needed, and he would just like start riffing, and I mean, I was constantly laughing. And like for the first time in my life, like my Sunday scaries went away because I was so psyched to get to work. Um, like truly, as I said, this is going to go down as one of the best jobs I've ever had. I laughed constantly. It was always funny. Even the crew, they were really funny, and so like I just enjoyed everybody on set, and I think everyone felt that way. Like I feel confident to say that like we all felt that way. And when I get to see the rest of the cast or even crew members, I've done other shows and there'll be a crew member from Superstore, and it's like so exciting to see them. Um, yeah, it was. I think too, I will say that like, yeah, the pandemic screwed up a lot of things, but I feel really lucky that I was on this show during the pandemic. We'd been together at that point for 5 years. So everybody was seeing it as caring for each other, like how we behaved on and off set. And so I just felt really lucky. We never shut down for a COVID outbreak. We never had a COVID outbreak. I'm not even sure we ever had an actual positive test. And I really believe that's because we all cared about each other and we're like, well, however I might feel about this, if somebody else has some sort of thing and they don't want to catch COVID, I got to do this for them. So I feel really lucky. It was a very close cast, I would say.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
I can only imagine having that much time together and that much time in that show. Uh, are there any stories that you can share? Because I'm sure there's a lot you can. But are there any stories you can share? Pranks gone right, gone wrong? I mean, what's fond memories? When you think back, what are the fond memories of your time on that show?
I think a lot about uh I feel like every episode Nico who played Mateo, would lead everyone in like a sing along. He's always singing, and so he will just be singing, and then he'll always hit on a song that everybody loves, and all of a sudden you've got an entire cast and crew of maybe 50, 100 people, and everybody is singing. Certainly the cast, but sometimes he could get the crew involved also. And that to me, I just was like, this is the funniest. They had we would always get like food trucks, like maybe once a week, a food truck that we could have. And I felt so like cared for, like I knew we were spoiled, but I also knew that somebody was doing it because we were like a really fun, cool cast. And when I say cast, I mean crew as well. Like everybody on that set was great. I'm trying to think of somebody that like kind of would grind my gears, and there really wasn't anybody. Like,
start naming names. Come on.
I'm trying.
I'll never work with them again.
And our base camp was always decorated for the seasons. Our base camp PA would always decorate all the trailers. So there'd be like, lights up in December. We were on Universal, so you could always hear people screaming at the Hollywood Horror Nights. Like it sounded like somebody was getting murdered in the distance. So
I mean, it is LA,
it's also Los Angeles, so that could have been happening too. But yeah, it just was I think of it so fondly.
Yeah.
And I'll tell you this, Ben Feldman, as a wrap gift to like the regular cast members, he got us these really cute handmade felt pictures that they were like made out of like layers of felt of our characters. And at the bottom, it has a mark, and everybody on set has a different color mark, so that like my mark was light pink. So nobody would else go to that mark. They know that's my mark. And so they all had our colored marks on them. And it's one of the things that I have hanging on the wall because I just think it's so unique and cool and sentimental. I love it.
Very thoughtful. Very thoughtful.
Yeah.
And we discussed too on the side that you're right there on the lot, and I know they would do the Universal tours, and you guys would see the trucks through.
Yeah.
So that's got to be like in that moment, be honest. Like there's got to be that little bit. Like, yeah, I'm kind of a big deal, I'm on a show, and
I geek out every time because I'm a fan first. Like I said, I love television. So and I was a fan of Superstore before I was on it. When I got the audition, I was like, oh man, this would be cool. But it doesn't always work out like that. So I just kind of, didn't think. And so I'm walking down, the street on the back lot, and a tour goes by, and somebody says, oh, that's Justine. And I'm like, holy shit. Like, no, I can't believe it. Even when I get recognized like in public, I just am like, this is so weird.
They go, oh, it's a celebrity. You're like, what? Where?
I do. I go like, oh my gosh, cool. Let's see. Yeah. So I think like people I'm with can get like, this is really fucking cool. I am more like, what? Oh yes. Oh my God. Thank you. It's so exciting.
I mean, it must be nice. I don't get. Actually, I've been recognized, I think, once in my life. But,
I was gonna say, I find that hard to believe. This is a fairly popular show.
It is what it is. So and as much as we love Justine, and I could honestly talk about the character and Superstores, but you've done a lot of other things too, and between the movies, between the TV shows, the theater. I mean, you have to portray a lot of different characters. Some emotional, some silly, some serious, all these different ranges. And then there's the genres, right? Because you comedy and drama and all these things. Like, how do you what's your approach? I'm always curious as an actor, okay, I'm gonna get this character. I know some things are very specific, right? They'll be like, hey, this is a very serious character, and we're gonna do this and this and this. But sometimes it's up to your interpretation. So how do you approach these different characters?
Yeah. So maybe setting aside somebody like Justine, who she kind of grew and evolved as time went on. And I also have to say, people are always like, you can't possibly be anything like Justine. And I'm like, you guys, we're all like Justine. It's just, we all hide it really well. Justine does not hide it. She's like an awkward dork.
No
No
filter.
filter. She
Yeah.
just like is out there being her awkward, dorky self. And by the way, I admire that. Like, good for her. Setting her aside, I think I think I approach them the same, and I start with whatever information is in the script. So the script reveals a lot of information about who the character is. So I start there. I think of, like, I only fill in blanks that need to be filled in. Otherwise, I depend on what the writer has written because, you know, this the seed was their seed. And again, I don't identify as a writer. I don't identify as a director. I'm an actor. So when you give me a script, I'm going to use that script to inform choices that I make. That's how I approach it. And then comedy, I think, for me, because I am I'll say that my training in specifically comedy is limited. Um, I think that I have a very both my father and my brother are disabled, and I just think when you go through like lifelong hardships, they're pretty severely disabled. I think what I learned is a very rock solid sense of humor. So for me, I don't think I approach anything in my life without a sense of humor. I think that's where my comedy comes from. Um, yeah, and also my family is completely hilarious. They are so funny. I'm nothing. I'm just like trying to keep up with them when I'm around them.
That's awesome. I'm so glad you shared that. I really am because
Yeah.
there's as someone I was shot multiple times, and as someone who in the military and deployed and all these things, you learn this thing of like you're either gonna laugh about it or you're gonna cry about it, right? You've got to
Yep.
develop this thick skin, and the military is known for its dark humor and the gallows humor and all these things.
Yes.
And like, on the side, I'll tell you some stories, but but it's just I think people that have been through really traumatic things, like you said, and really tough things, appreciate just how silly sometimes it can all be, right? The seriousness of it, of the
Mhm.
moment, and wow, life, you live, laugh, love, all the cliches,
Sure.
all the things.
I mean, I
Um,
think too, like it's not to belittle the seriousness of the situation, but like honestly, the seriousness of any situation does not have to be driven home. This is
mhm.
very clearly serious. So, and my mom literally says all the time, if you don't laugh about it, you're going to cry about it. And we do plenty of crying about it as well. Nobody's trying to pretend, we're not trying to like toxic positivity this to death, but we are just trying to get through it the best way we know how. This past time when my dad had like an accident and he was in a bed and I was trying to help him change and I pushed him over and I threw the pillow over like near where his face was and he's like, I knew it, my time has come
This is
and it's
it.
at my daughter's hands. Like, but yes, that is the dark humor that comes with what are you gonna do, like
Yeah,
this is very serious, we all get that, now let's
yeah.
have a laugh about it and get
Yeah,
through it.
I love that. No, I love it. I love because the attitude in which you handle things and approach things can change the situation. It really can. And anyway, but we don't have to beat that to death. But I love that you shared that. Thank you for sharing that.
Yeah.
You touched on it a little bit about like people will just yell out lines to you and things. So I'm
Yeah.
curious, like, do you remember the first time where somebody was like, "Oh, Justine," and like, what was
Yes.
that moment like?
Oh my gosh, the first time I was at a restaurant with a friend. We were sharing a meal because we were both broke. So we had gone to, I can tell you the restaurant, I can tell you what we ordered, everything. And so when the check came, we split it, a couple of broke girls just like doing our best. And the we both had debit cards. The credit card receipts come back and I open it up to sign it. And there's a little piece of receipt and it says, I adore you on Superstore with a little heart. And I was like, who? I start looking around. Who did this? Where did this come from? And when it happened, my friend was in the bathroom. She comes back from the bathroom and I show it to her. And she's like, oh my God. And the two of us are sitting at the table like, oh my God, I can't believe that just happened.
It's
This is
happening.
crazy.
It's
Yes.
happening.
We were like freaking out. So that was the first time, and I still have it. It's in a little like trinket lockbox in my
Good.
bedroom.
Good.
Yep. And the funniest one, just so that you know, this is what it's like. This is how glamorous it is. I was sitting in a Portillo's eating hot dogs with my parents, and a woman came up with her cell phone and she puts it in my face and she goes, "Is this you?" And I look at it, and yes, it is a picture that she has pulled up of me. And I was like, yes. It was so aggressive. I thought she was yelling at me. So I was like,
I'm
yes.
so sorry.
And she goes, "I knew it. I told my friends it was you. I knew it." And she walked away. And I was like, I feel like she's mad at me. Like, I don't know what happened. And my parents were like glowing. They were like, oh my gosh, our little girl just got recognized. And I was like, did you see her yell at me?
You don't know if you're gonna get murdered in the parking lot. Like, I just want to make sure this is my target. This you? This is the one.
I wasn't 100% sure. And I'm very sensitive. So like my feelings were hurt. I was like, I don't know what I did. Why is she mad at me? So
The only way that's
yeah.
better is if she's like, "Is this you?" And then she shows a picture of like Sandra, and she's like, "Is this you?" You're like,
No,
right show,
that's not
wrong
me.
character.
I do get Rebel Wilson a lot, and I'm
Rebel-
like, no,
wow.
we're just two white blonde girls.
Yep.
That's it.
Yeah. Like, Reba, right?
Reba.
Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
obviously.
Oh,
She had the
I
same
would be
looks.
flattered if somebody thought I was Reba.
So there is a question from the chats, and I've ignored a few of them, but it's fine. We'll get to them. The first time, do you recall? Have you ever had a moment of being starstruck, like either special guest or just
Constantly.
out in there? What was your first big starstruck moment?
I am constantly starstruck. Well, first of all, I'm very intimidated by celebrities, so I almost never say anything. However, um, this is a deep cut, but Francesca Ramsey, years ago, she did this web series on MTV called Decoded. And, you know, she kind of invented internet or social media activism. And I was a big fan of hers. And she was on the last season of Superstore. And I had to like hold on to it like for I don't know, like 3 episodes. We would, this was during COVID. So we rode a bus up to where they tested us all for COVID every day. And we would be on the bus together. And I was just like, oh my God, am I going to say something? Do I just be cool? How do I say something? And finally I told her, and I just was honest that I was geeking out the whole time. And she was like, wow, I never would have known. And I was like, yes. So
Actor.
yeah, I try to keep it under wraps. And I tend to freak out about like super nerdy stuff. Like if it's somebody that I saw on an episode of like Law and Order SVU, I will lose my shit. I'll be so excited.
You were a dead prostitute. You were
That's
the
right.
prostitute. Just yelling at them.
Yep.
Just go up to them with the phone. This is you, right?
This is you.
This is you.
I know. I should.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
What for you? Because we're running short on time too, man. This has been such a good conversation.
Oh, good.
How do you, when you look at the legacy of Superstore, right? Like where it started, where it ended, the fact that I feel like it's gotten bigger over time, the streaming and things. Like, how do you reflect on that time and the legacy of it?
I mean, I have so many good feelings, and I agree. Like when COVID happened, I think a lot of people binged that show, and I think the reason they did, I could be wrong, but I think the reason they did is because it is funny, but it has so much heart, and I think it's a show where you let your freak flag fly, and I love that. I love the idea of these like misfits. Finding a family. I think the way, I don't want to give anything away if someone hasn't watched it, but like the way that the series ends is lovely. And so I hope that the legacy is that it was a really solid comedy with a ton of heart. I hope you can go there and see yourself. I hope you go there and you feel welcome. Because that's how I think of it.
Yeah. Absolutely.
Yeah.
And it, I mean, it has a ton of replayability. It's, it's not one of these shows where you're like, oh man, it's so outdated. It really stays relevant, I feel like, in the comedy and the stories it's trying to tell.
Yeah.
And it's funny enough, this episode, our first hour, we were talking about different series that kind of stuck the landing and some that left us wanting more. We didn't touch on it, but I do feel like Superstore is in the category of, stuck the landing, if not, really wrapped it up really, really well. And they did such a good job with that. So I'm glad to
Thank
hear.
you.
Is there? I know a lot of actors will do the convention circuit. Do you do appearances? Do you ever take the time, meet the fans, sign autographs, all
I
that
would
stuff?
love to, but no, but I don't think anyone wants me. So, but I would love to. But yeah, no, nothing currently.
Okay, well
No,
we're gonna I'll put some feelers out because
make it happen.
if people are screaming out about reverse cowgirl to you, you're gonna be a
I
huge hit on the
know.
convention circuit. You're gonna be a
Oh my gosh.
huge hit on the convention circuit.
I
Um,
know.
where
Ugh,
can people follow, support, social media,
right.
all that stuff?
So I mostly use Instagram. I do have a Facebook like fan page, but I don't really use it all that much. Sorry, Facebook. But yeah, Instagram is where you can find me, and I also have a TikTok that sometimes I'll share things, but I'm not good about it. Um, so yeah, probably Instagram is the best place to find me.
Okay.
And like once every 3 years, I'll post something on like Twitter or
Yeah,
Threads
I,
or
I
whatever.
stalked you. There's a good solid
Oh
year
yeah, you
between.
found it.
It's a good year between tweets. It's okay. It's
That's
okay.
right. Hey,
Social media is
listen,
hard,
I only think of something funny to say on my own
right?
very rarely, and
You
that's
need
when I
the
tweet it.
you need the
Yep.
writers. You need the writers on staff to,
I
to do it.
desperately need writers.
Every time you said that, like I identify as an actor, I kept going back to the I'm Ron Burgundy, like reading the
Yes,
teleprompter.
that is exactly it.
That's
Tell me
ex-
what to say, and you are going to be blown away. I
oh man,
promise.
I love it. I love it.
Yeah.
Is there anything if the people out there want to support you, they want to? Is there anything like this is one of my favorite questions. I didn't even get to it. We got to squeeze it in. What's something that you did that you are super proud of that like you wish for whatever reason you wish more people saw, and maybe it didn't get its fair shake or anything that people can go back right
Mm.
now and find?
I do think Hot in Cleveland is a great sitcom. If you like a very traditional, you know, live audience sitcom, it's great, and it's got Betty White in like one of her. I mean, look, it's no Golden Girls, but it's got Betty White in a very funny performance where she gets to be even more sort of blue and funny than she was on Golden Girls. So I think that show did not get maybe as much attention. It was on TV Land, and so I think if you're not familiar with the
Yeah.
lineup on TV Land, um, yeah, but that's probably the one that I would say go back and watch it. It's a good sitcom.
There you go. We're gonna send
Yeah.
the army. We're gonna send the army out there to watch Hot in Cleveland, get it up
Yes.
in the streaming numbers. And then finally, is there anything upcoming? Anything that you can talk about? Anything that you want people to keep an eye out for, or
Well,
see you at something?
I'm sure you know that between the pandemic and the strikes, there's been very little work. So if you want to support actors, the best thing that you can do is go back and watch things that already are out there because there's very little. It seems like it's starting to pick up a little bit
Starting,
now.
yeah.
Yeah. And I do have one thing in the can that I can't talk about, but um, yeah, go watch things on that have aired that you can go watch somewhere
Yes.
because yeah, it's been a tough couple of years.
Absolutely. Now, it's been a real gag, running a pop culture talk show during a pandemic when nothing
Oh, I
came out
know.
and
With
and
no new.
strikes. And obviously, we have all the love and support. We are the biggest supporters of our actors and writers and creators, and so obviously, like when you guys went on strike, we're like, hey, we're right there with you. We were talking
We
about like
appreciate it.
Legos and calendars and
I know. I
toys.
love that. That's wonderful. We appreciate it so much. We felt the support.
Absolutely. No, it's only right that you guys are given the dues for the hard work that you do, and also are not taken advantage of. I love AI. I'm a big fan of technology. I'm a huge nerd, but at the same time, you can't take away people's likes and voices and all these, like, it's not right, and you should never.
No, yeah.
You take the heart out of a performance when you use robots to make it. But anyway, I digress.
Yes.
Kelly, you
Yes, sir.
are phenomenal. I love you.
Thank
This is
you.
amazing. Thank you for
Thank
doing
you.
this.
My
You
pleasure.
are a friend of the show forever. Anytime you want to come back, shoot the shit, promote anything, talk to us, or just hang out, we'd love to have you. You can be my
Awesome.
co-host for a night, whatever you want.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, anything. Absolutely.
I
The
love
red
it.
carpet for you. Like I said, we'll promote. I'll keep an eye out on your Instagram, and whenever you
Yes.
do announce anything, we'll make sure we.
I lost your sound.
Oh,
Oh,
hello?
there you are. I
There
got
we
you
go.
back. I got you back. There we go.
I'm messing around with my mic. But we just want to make sure we support you, and whenever you have anything coming out, you're a friend of the show, and we want to make sure that people go out there and support. So, with the
Thank you.
last few seconds, I want to give you the floor. The floor is yours to say goodnight to the audience. Anything that's on your mind, anything you want to say. This is your moment.
Oh, good night. Thank you for your service. Thank you for your support. Thank you for letting me be here. I'm incredibly grateful and lucky. Thank you.
Look at that. And see, you didn't even need writers. You came up with that all on your own.
Oh my God. It was so good. So eloquent.
So good. So good. All right, guys, I'm going to say goodbye to our guest. We're going to toss into a commercial. Once again, this has been the phenomenal Kelly Schumann, everybody. Go show her love and stream the things. We'll be right back with more show right after this.